Shana Tova, everyone. It's good to be able to greet you again. I really do hope that despite the circumstances of the moment that you, your families, and all of your loved ones are doing well and will continue to do well in the days ahead. So here we are, the high holidays. The masses gather, everyone shows up. We see people that we may not have seen for a long time, and we enjoy catching up with them. To many of us, these moments are as important as anything we do during the course of our services. Yet, there is at least one moment when something happens that stirs you, that uplifts you, or confronts you with enduring truths. The words, the melodies, at some point, they move you. That's why we keep coming back. To be stirred, to be uplifted, or maybe, just maybe, to realize we need to change in some way. Poof! This year, it's all gone. Seeing each other, catching up with the people who sit around you, many of the sights and sounds, the majestic backdrop of our sanctuary, all of these elements that you have come to associate with high holidays your entire life, elements that have made this high holiday experience the spiritually impactful one I hope it is for you, almost all of them gone. Right now, it's just you, wherever you are, and whatever the nature of your attire in this moment, and me, inside this box. Huh. It sure is different this year. And that, my friends, is why I will try to move you the only way I know how to, with reflections rooted in this unique time and a new understanding of a familiar prayer. One of the most powerful and disturbing pieces of liturgy in our Machzor High Holiday prayer book is Untana Tokef. On this day, all of us pass before you, God, one by one, like a flock of sheep. And we continue with well-known words, Berosh Hashanah yikatevun uv'yom tzom kippur yechatemun. The image of God is the Holy One making decisions today and sealing our fates in the days ahead. A legend concerning the origins of this prayer only adds to our alarm as we read its frightening words. Back in the 11th century, the Archbishop of Mainz ordered Rabbi Amnon to convert. He asked for 3 days to consider the demand. And at the end of that period, the Archbishop ordered Rabbi Amnon to appear before him. When he did so, the Archbishop declared that Rabbi Amnon be dismembered limb by limb. Somehow, amidst this horrific scene, according to the legend, Rabbi Amnon wrote Untana Tokef. The legend then is clear. By hesitating, by not forthrightly rejecting the Archbishop's order, Rabbi Amnon had sinned. As he understood it, God was punishing him in this grotesque manner. What a terrible story. And yet, Untana Tokef leaves many of us feeling that a day of judgment, both personal and collective, may be at hand. We face consequences for our actions or perhaps for our inaction. But please, step back for a moment. Whether you tie this story of Rabbi Amnon to Untana Tokef or you focus solely on the prayer itself, who could possibly love such a God? Who could invoke the name of the Holy One in prayer? Who could possibly appeal to God to bring healing or well-being? In plain terms, when we turn in our Machzor to pages 282 and 284, how can we utter the words we find there? Nonetheless, Untana Tokef and its penetrating power endure. Why? I think there are several reasons. Among them is our desire, seldom expressed, to know that our actions have consequences. They matter. If that isn't the case, then why bother to behave one way or the other? But I also believe this moment, the pandemic of 2020, contributes its own unique backdrop as we struggle with this prayer. Yesterday, as I introduced the Musaf Amidah and its 3 special sections, I mentioned that at any given moment, a familiar prayer can mean something new to a person. It can take on additional meaning. That can happen when a person's recent experience shapes her consciousness and she brings that awareness to the prayer. So, let's take a look at this familiar, frighteningly powerful prayer and read it against the backdrop of our present pandemic. Before I do so, though, I offer my gratitude to Reb Mimi Feigelson for the insights she offered in the study session this past summer. Friends, I can imagine what went through your minds these past 2 days as we reached this prayer during our service. Mi yichyeh u'mi yamut, and all of the ways that death might come to us, or to our loved ones, or friends, or others. Reb Mimi got me thinking. She suggested we look at Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun differently this year. We have a choice, Reb Mimi suggested. Either we can grow because of our unprecedented experience these past 6 months, or we can shrink. We can gain insight and a calming perspective, or we can despair. A very likely outcome if we read this prayer literally and focus on the tragic number of people dying from COVID-19. Is Reb Mimi correct? I think so. Let me tell you why. Look at the words of Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun, at all of the ways people have died and will die in the months ahead. We know about these types of death, yet for most of us, not all of us, mind you, but for most of us, there is a certain arm's length identification with them. We hear about them, we read about them, but few of us actually see them occur. And when we imagine our own death someday, if we allow ourselves to do so, few of us do so in these terms. But COVID is different. We've seen its effects. Many of us know people who have suffered from the virus, and we can imagine the possibility of the virus striking us, or our loved ones, or our friends, because of its widespread nature and the fact that we do not fully control its course. This year, the raging presence of COVID assaults us in this prayer, unlike any other means of death mentioned in it. Umi vakarona, we could add, and who by COVID-19. Can you really accept that outcome as divine punishment for wrongdoing? Could you possibly love such a God? Like Reb Mimi, I think I've gained insight into this troubling prayer and grown in my understanding of it. In my case, by virtue of this book, In Pursuit of Godliness and a Living Judaism, the life and thought of Rabbi Harold M. Schulweis. Its author, Rabbi Ed Feinstein, succeeded Rabbi Schulweis as the senior rabbi of Valley Beth Shalom in Los Angeles. To Rabbi Schulweis, God is not a supernatural actor, an omnipotent puller of strings in the universe. Instead, God is within the world and within each of us. Fires, floods, famines, earthquakes, and coronavirus are not acts of God. Sometimes they are related to human behavior and abuse of the world, but more frequently, they simply arise from the chaos that remains in our universe. Olam kamin hago noheg, the Talmud informs us, the world acts in accordance with its own course. Now, experientially, you and I know that to be true. If so, Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun is not an assertion about an aggrieved God sitting on high, determining the fates and sealing them. No, it is a statement about reality in our world. My friends, people will die this year. They will perish by fire and flood, by weapon and wild beast, by famine and by COVID. And the presence of God within our world and ourselves urges us to respond to this challenge. What will you do? How will you express God's presence through your actions? How will you seek to bring healing and peace? The prayer's response is this: Utshuva utfila utzdaka ma'avirin et roa hagazera. We cannot change the facts and realities about death and dislocation, but we can lessen their roa. We can ameliorate their severity. Utshuva. Many, if not all of us, have failed people at times in their darkest moments. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know what to do. So in effect, because of the discomfort, we ignored such things. We talked about something different. Better not to upset him and cause tears, we thought. We were wrong. Now is it time for tshuva, for change, to be the presence of God with those who suffer, by listening to them, by acknowledging their pain. It's a difficult thing to do, but it is necessary in order to encourage eventual well-being. Utfilah, pray for people. Pray that they be able to express the divine within themselves, the resilient spirit that will aid their recovery. Let them know you are praying for them. And if you can set aside your self-consciousness, pray with them, or at least in their presence. Let them hear healing and reassuring words. And finally, utzdaka. Reach out along with others in righteous and caring ways to support those who have suffered grievous loss. One divinely inspired human being joining with others to support someone in a time of need brings profound healing. Eventually, the one who is suffering will again recognize a healing power that can also inspire him or her. My friends, I hope that you, your loved ones, and friends will celebrate many beautiful moments in the year ahead. But we already know it will be a difficult time for many people in our community and elsewhere, perhaps some within our own circles. As we consider that inevitable scenario, let us rid ourselves of disturbing images that can only alienate us from the Holy One or add pain to burdens already felt. Let us not speak of a God who harshly punishes, but rather of the ultimate healer of shattered hearts. And finally, let us, as God's instruments, seek to bring healing to those in need through our listening ears, the words of our consoling lips, and the actions of our sustaining hands. Amen.